What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Today we're continuing with our 32-team 7-round mock draft, and we're going to be taking a look at the New York Giants. Always interesting when I do teams in the NFC East that aren't my Philadelphia Eagles, but I always try my hardest to take an unbiased approach to try to give you guys the best mock draft experience available. So before we jump into the full 7-round mock draft, we have to look at the framework that was laid out by this Giants organization, new GM Dave Gettleman, through free agency. And how is that going to set the framework up for the draft? So looking at what they brought in linebacker Alec Ogletree from the Rams. Not the greatest of contracts, but he, good linebacker, a good starting linebacker, much better than what they had available on the roster. I believe they'll be switching to a 3-4. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure Betcher ran a 3-4. Ultimately, though, they needed linebacker help regardless of scheme, and Alec Ogletree is the best of the bunch. They brought in running back Jonathan Stewart, and they use the term bridge quarterback because he's pretty much going to be a bridge, what we call a band-aid running back. That still can be productive, still capable of 1,000 yards. The offensive line play is there. Linebacker Kareem Martin for some depth, may compete for a starting gig. And then they paid left tackle Nate Solder a whole bunch of money to come in and be their starting tackle. I think they paid way more than what he's worth. But again, you needed help. It's an open market. You had to bring him in one way or another. And Nate Solder, he's a solid starting left tackle in the NFL, which there's still some teams that don't have that caliber of tackle. But they paid a pretty penny, and that may hurt their salary cap situation going forward. But then again, Eli Manning's probably going to hang up the shoes sooner than later, and that'll help them with their cap situation down the road. Now, they lost Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. He is gone. He was a starting corner. They lost starting center Weston Richburg, who, when healthy, is a very decent starting center. They lost linebacker Devin Kennard to the Lions. He was a starter. They lost offensive lineman Justin Pugh to the Cardinals. So, an offensive line, in terms of names, guys that have had strong seasons, according to Pro Football Focus or whatever in the past, for a terrible offensive line, they lost their two big name guys that have had success in this league. So let's see if we can help them out with our mock drafts. So with the first pick number 2 in the NFL draft, I have the New York Giants selecting quarterback Josh Rosen from UCLA. He'll come in as quarterback too. He's probably capable of starting year one. When you look at the quarterbacks this year's draft class, I would say debatably Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield are the two guys that if you needed an outright starter as a rookie, those are the guys you want. But it's always beneficial to not rush in your quarterback. It's such a big transition. I think Josh Rosen is the best quarterback in this class. I think Josh Rosen, when you look at the next, we'll ballpark 2 draft classes worth of players, that time frame where you're going to need to find the replacement for Eli Manning for sure, Josh Rosen is probably the best out of all those quarterbacks. Of the current crop, you probably say he is the best coming out of college, that was in college. How do you pass this up if you're the New York Giants? I think that when we saw with the Jets and Colts trade, I think that the Giants would have had a lot more buzz, or may have been the team that moved back if they weren't surefire on getting a quarterback here. Because let's be honest, quarterback is going in the top 3 picks. First 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. And unless they can be swept off their feet by the Buffalo Bills, which would be incredibly annoying because I spent 7-8 hours on my mock draft and I have to redo it, I think here you gotta get the replacement for Eli Manning. You're the Giants. As much as I hate the Giants, they're usually really competitive, and like a bad season, realistically for the Giants, is like 8-8, 7-9. That is not top 10 pick to get your next franchise quarterback. They don't expect to be in this position again, and with your opportunity to get one of the best prospects in terms of hype, he's near for his entire career, like Andrew Luck levels almost. Andrew Luck's still the best quarterback prospect I've ever seen coming out of college, but in terms of height levels, in terms of his ceiling and when he's playing well, Josh Rosen is right up there with some of the best quarterback prospects we've seen over the last 10 years. And, Eli may be there for a year. You get a guy, head coach Pat Shermer was able to get production out of Case Keenum, an older quarterback, a veteran, might be able to rejuvenate Eli Manning's career. But ultimately, you get Josh Rosen on the roster, you get him ready to take over. I like Davis Webb. I really liked him coming out of Cal, but they kind of put the writing on the wall. It's a new coach, but when they're playing Geno Smith over Davis Webb, maybe they're not that high on him. And ultimately, hey, teams now, you want good backups. Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe Nick Foles in the future. The better the backup, the more assets you're able to recoup later on. I think, ultimately, though, for this number 2 spot, the Giants would be absolutely foolish to pass up on getting Eli Manning's replacement here. Because it'd be so short-term thinking not to get a quarterback here. Sure, Saquon Barkley's nice. You don't have the offensive line to rely on a run game. You know what I'm saying? It's a passing league, and you're very much a passing team. If you're gonna pay Odell Beckham the kind of money that he wants, you better be not a run-first team, if you know what I'm saying. So get your quarterback here in Josh Rosen. Don't overthink it. It's easy. Plus, I think with Pat Schumer, when you bring in a new GM, new front office, usually you put in plan to get their franchise quarterback, and it's not Eli Manning. Moving on to the second round, pick 34. I am selecting center James Daniels from Iowa, regarded as definitely a first-round talent. So they're getting, you know, again, they're getting that spillover like we talked about in the Browns video. Guys that are clear first-round talents that are going to slip. James Daniels, very much like divisional rival Jason Kelsey, is your athletic, prototypical athletic center. Not the biggest, but he is a bona fide first-round talent. Some people say that he is debatably the second best offensive lineman after Quentin Nelson, if you're grading, you know, the tackles, guards, and centers all together. Look really, really smooth in the combine drills, and with losing Weston Richburg, James Daniels could walk in day one and be a starting center for this team. This is a team that has to get better on the offensive line, and the way I'm looking at it in this second round, the best value for a starting upgrade for the offensive line is James Daniels. Got to get that. Plus, you know, he's from Iowa. Iowa offensive linemen, for the most part, they pretty much come in pro-ready, and when they have the same, you know, the similar talent that a James Daniels has, they're ready to start day one. Moving on to the third round, pick 66. I have the Giants selecting running back, finally, Sony Michel from Georgia. Very talented running back. This is an excellent value pickup. I think third rounds, you know, he probably in terms of talent is like a mid-second round talent, but he's going to be sitting here at the top end of the third, and the Giants are laughing. You know, he puts play. Sony Michel, he's not a Saquon Barkley, but for the next tier, the Darius Geises, Nick Chubb, Nick Chubbs, you got your Ronald Joneses, all those nice little running backs, Darius Geis, stuff like I said. Sony Michel, like, that's that grouping that, like, they're all talented, and no one really knows which one of that clumping is going to emerge as, like, you know, everyone say the next Alvin Kamara, like the best of that bunch. It's that close, and the fact that you're holding off to the third round, and you get a guy in Sony Michel that could be a franchise running back going forward. You got your little placeholder there in Jonathan Stewart. If they get Sony Michel, it's going to be kind of similar-ish to how they used Jonathan Stewart and Christian McCaffrey in Carolina last year. They'll probably give Jonathan Stewart a lot of the, you know, early snaps early in the season, and as the year gets on, Sony Michel's going to start to eat and eat and eat. Plus, you got Wayne Gallman on the roster. I like Wayne Gallman coming to Clemson. Probably be able to help in and chip in a little bit here and there, but ultimately, I think a guy like Sony Michel, who can pretty much do it all: pass protection, catch, run. Excellent pick here. And now, you know, look, this is the future. You're building the Giants offense for the future. You're going to sign Odell. You have Evan Ingram, the explosive tight end. Then you got Josh Rosen. Now you got his center. And, you know, center's incredibly important for your quarterback. Obviously, his hands are on his nuts the whole game. And then you might have your franchise running back in Sony Michel. I actually hate how good this draft is looking for the Giants. Going to the fourth round, pick 102. I've been going offensive tackle Joseph Noteboom from TCU. Some mock drafts will have him in rankings, have him as a fringe top 5 tackle in this year's draft class. I think he's just outside of that. Looked decent at the combine. Tape at TCU is not terrible. And I think when you look at the Giants' offensive line, Noteboom could come in and compete for that starting right tackle job. I mean, when you look at the names they have there, no one guy has that job outright. Adam Bisnawadi, you got Eric Flowers, Chad Wheeler. You'd assume right now Flowers might be able to make that transition to right tackle. Maybe that's better for him. But ultimately, you know, Flowers, who last year was acceptable, and every other year he's been a dumpster fire, you never know. And I think a guy like Noteboom has that potential to eventually develop, in case, you know, say Eric Flowers has a big year and wants to get paid, kind of gets a big head about him. We're saying, you know, slightly crazy things here, but that could happen. But I think a guy like Noteboom is a nice swing tackle to have on the roster that could come in the fourth round and potentially be your starting right tackle to open up the season. Next up, in the fifth round, 139. Originally, I had it as a linebacker. I'm coming back to edit it now because the more and more I look at the depth chart, they need to get some cornerback help. So sitting here is a guy with upside, but a notorious bad side. If you watch the game against Alabama, you know what I'm talking about. And that's Rashawn Golden, defensive back from the University of Tennessee. Breakout season, had a really good year. And then in the game against Alabama, flipped off the crowd. Not good. Not a good look when you're coming out from the college game to the pros. But ultimately, I think he has lots of upside. There's some character concerns, yeah. But he definitely is the kind of guy that probably come in day one, be corner 3 on the roster. And, you know, you got the shakiness of an Eli Apple. Janoris Jenkins, Jackrabbit's one of the best corners in football. I mean, he's on a big contract. So you think next year you're fine. But looking forward, it would not hurt the Giants to invest in the secondary at some point and getting good value in Ranchod Golden, who is a kind of player that can play everything. He can play outside corner, which is kind of what they need right now. He can play safety. He can play nickel. Very, very versatile. And you're going to see that as a common thread amongst most of my mock drafts, is that pretty much from rounds 5, 6, and 7, I'm looking for guys that have a shot to crack the final 53 and offer a lot of versatility to crack that final 53, and adding more competition in a secondary that, there's no more Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. I think that, ship is sailed. I don't think he's going to return. Though I do think the Giants probably will be in play for a veteran cornerback. Getting a guy like Golden that has a very high upside in this spot, and also kind of gives you cover for Eli Apple in case the Eli Apple experiment seems like, Pat Shurmur's going to give him one more year. If that doesn't work out, you got a guy in Golden that I think, he could start in the NFL at some point early in his career. He's not going to be a project type player, if you will. So yeah, that's what we have them going in the 5th round. Like I said, originally it was a linebacker, but the more I look at it, they definitely need to add some secondary help, and why not get one of the better value picks of the second half of the draft. Kind of reminds me a little bit in terms of play style of what Philadelphia got in Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills was supposed to go, 2nd round, 3rd round, something crazy like that. Ended up dropping to the 7th. I don't think it's going to be that big of a drop, but similar type of players, similar types of attitudes, and it works out. Jalen Mills, won the Super Bowl. And then finishing up in the 7th round, pick 241, have them going with punter Joseph Davidson from Bowling Green. They recently released Brad Wing. I think they just brought in like Raquel, a camp body for punter. Why not go get a guy that's, probably a top 5 punter last year in college football. He's 6'7", got great range. Get yourself a start here in the 7th round. There's not a whole lot, filtering around mid-7th round. So go and get a position, get a bona fide draftable punter who will be able to start day one for you guys and contribute on special teams right away. You can't really, de-stress the importance of a punter. And he's, because he's draftable, I think NFL.com has him as like a 6th round pick. There you go, getting good value once again. And with that punting spot still being open for the Giants, just go with the safe pick and get yourself a starter. So there you go, guys. That is my full New York Giants mock draft. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the picks in the comment section below. As always, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.